The membership list. Now, I have to be careful here, I don't want to over-exaggerate. Of the list of 12,000, only 855 or 58 actually put their profession down. But let me just make this clear. 19% of them were in the armed forces, 13% were company and shop owners, 10% were construction, independent construction workers, 9% were professionals, 7% were managers, 7% were HGV and taxi drivers or driving instructors, 4% were teachers, 4% were police and prison warders, 4% were security workers, and 2% were health workers. By any estimation, by any way of judging it, that by definition is 2/3 of those members are petty bourgeois type jobs or middle class professions. Absolutely, and that's what they've got inside them. Again, I want to go back to the Tower Hamlets branch because I think it's a useful example because Tower Hamlets branch, by definition, is the poorest borough in the city. One of the poorest boroughs. Everyone asks about whether you live in London. My borough is the poorest. You know, it's one of the poorest, whatever. And therefore, you'd expect it, by definition, to have contain more elements of the working class in it than that. And what did we find out when we were given the BNPs and Tower Hamlets branch list? 4 of them work in the cities and pay subs of £400 a month. They must be very rich people indeed. 4 are retired, by the way, those are all 4 in the BUF. 3 are newspaper sellers, 2 are unemployed, 2 are self-employed, 2 are shop owners, 2 are market stall holders, 2 are housewives, and 1 is a painter decorator. So in one of the poorest boroughs, what we really see is a petty bourgeois, tiny elements of it, but more petty bourgeois, the idea of white van driver, newspaper seller, atomised kind of petty little businessman. And I think it's an interesting thing. Again, when it comes to who votes Labour, I think who votes BNP, I think we get a common sense view that many people think is just actually Labour people. And again, the Democratic audit found that the BNP did well in places where Labour was once strong. But this does not mean that Labour voters are simply switching over to the BNP. BNP, and this is their own survey, found that 60% of its vote came from people who describe themselves as ex-Tories, and 20% from ex-Labour voters, and 20% from Liberals. So of course they are eating into some disenfranchised Labour people, but their voter is Tories. And even if they are working class, they are the classic 1/3 of people who always voted Tory, and therefore I think we see a different form of organisation than much of the media would like to play. I want to do another key thing, which is the strengths and weaknesses of this strategy. See, the strengths are obvious. The BNP are now the most successful electoral fascist party Britain has ever seen. Ever seen. Bigger than Mosley, bigger than National Front. And I think that YouGov poll that I talked about earlier shows that that is swimming in a big pool and its racist support is hardening up. But, and I think it's important, there is a weakness within this strategy as well, because despite its electoral support, its political organisation is very small. When we went to counter-demonstrate against them at Barking, the national demonstration called by the BNP, they only had 100 odd people there. That is not a mass part of the streets that can attack people. Again, it is attracting racists, but actually, even they have been completely won over to the fascist programme. There's a guy called Colin Ortley. He's the Leeds councillor for the BNP, and people may not know this, he stood against Nick Griffin for the leadership of the BNP last year. And he discovered 2 things in his election campaign. He said this, he said, the BNP are an anti-Semitic party. We're trying to sell a new car with a scratch bonnet. Yeah, you are in a fascist party that's anti-Semitic, but he doesn't even get it. He goes on again, he says, he goes, we don't even have a constitution. It's a dictator's dream. Yes, mate, you've actually done that. Because you are a fascist organisation. Don't feel sorry for this man, he's a nasty racist scumbag, but what it shows is he's not been won fully to the fascist cause. And it shows that they can attract people on a large scale, but at the same time they are not cadarising. And I think Griffin understands this very, very, very well indeed. Griffin is going all out to cadarise his organisation. That's why the Red, White and Blue festivals are taking place. That's why now to become a fully paid member of BNP, you have to go to educationals 4 times a year. They're trying to cadarise their vote, cadarise their support to make them hard fascists. And that was the ones they have the secret meetings with that they talk about. We also have to say this, and this is a big warning. You have to also be clear that fascism at the moment, the BNP concentrates mainly through the ballot box. But I tell you something, it can switch from the ballot box to the street just like that, and we have to be prepared at all times. Anyone who watched the Italian elections last year will have seen how they win the elections, and then they go out onto the streets, out onto the counties, attacking student union groups, attacking workers. We saw it in Luton. We saw it in Luton just a week before the election. Griffin gave the nod to that bloody website to say to them, get to Luton and attack, and you saw hordes of white racist thugs shambling running around the streets attacking Asian shopkeepers. It does not have a beautiful vision of democracy. It will use democracy to build its base up. At the same time, it will bring out a flick knife and attack people at the same time. It isn't bothered which method, it's just the goal. The aim is fascist state. How you get there, they're not bothered about, and they'll use anything they can. And that's the last point I want to say about the weakness of Griffin, is it brings within the organisation very, very big tensions between those who like to street fight and those who believe the electoral method is the best way of building up support. And therefore, the BNP is constantly factional ridden, constant debates and constant tensions. This is my last point. How are we going to beat the BNP? And I think it's simple. I believe we need a sword and a shield. And I want to start with the shield. The shield has got to be a united front, which is what I believe Unite Against Fascism is and Love Music, Hate Racism is. And it's based on the idea of Trotsky, which is we may have many differences with the Labour Party leaders, we may have many differences with trade union leaders, but I'll tell you something, if they take power, those differences are meaningless, because we are all going to the camps, we are all going to be executed, we are all going to prison. That is an absolute fact. You can sit there opposite Tony Blair and go, I told you so, but it ain't going to get none of us nowhere at all. We have to start with, we need maximum unity against the BNP. That means we have to march separately and strike together. If we don't do that, the BNP will come through the middle and divide us off from one another. And however bad Labour is, however bad the trade union leaders are, we have to fight for the maximum unity and overcome sectarian divisions and work with these people. Secondly, we have to have a national and a local campaign. I can't stand it when I read people turning around saying we only need localised campaigns. It's crazy. The BNP are going to hold their festival of fascism in Codner, a village of about 400 people. Are we really saying, when internationally every fascist in the world is trying to get to Codner, it's up to Codner to stop the BNP? It's nonsense. We need a national mobilisation to take the BNP. But at the same time, we also have to have a local campaign that can unite local trade unionists, faith groups, communities, and take on the propaganda at a local level to deal. We need a national and a local, and to try and split the two is stupid and actually plays right into their hands. Secondly, we need to have mass propaganda. I think we have to say to people we want to get our propaganda as far and wide as possible for all those groups. And that's one of the great strengths of Love Music, Hate Racism. I call it the Carlsberg of anti-fascist movements, because it reaches parts of this movement no one else can reach. Anyone that got Stoke here, it was wonderful. The average age of Stoke was 17 years of age. These are a young future of Britain. No, the unions and Labour Party do not reach these people. Anti-fascism, the combination of that and music coming together, drawing an experience of multiracial Britain and celebrating it, and then turning it on its head again and to fight back against these people is the way to go. And I'll tell you what, it makes us, if we are beginning to win, it can make a difference. I think it's difficult, but I want to just point out the West Midlands and the Euro election results. The campaigns, the BNP's vote went down in 4 places. Nuns and Beds, Sandwell, Cannock and Walsall. I think we've got 4 very good UF groups there. The rest of West Midlands, their vote went up, and those 4 places they went down. Local campaigning began to undercut them, and they should be very proud of themselves in those. That organisation to start to go on the streets and organise it there, and we have to turn around and say, when they march, when they try and organise, they are not the same as other parties, because when the Tory calls a march to stop an airport going on, what follows isn't murder and violence. But when the BNP get elected, you see an increase in racist attacks. That's why when the BNP won in Barnsley and Dagenham, there was a 300% increase. After the election results in Stoke, what did the BNP do? They went and beat up some poor bloke who helped organise the Stoke Festival. You see the tax increase now by something like 100% in the last month in the northwest. And therefore, because exactly they use violence, we have the right to defend ourselves. They're not the same as other political parties, and when they organise, we have to organise on the streets to stop them. They don't just believe in democracy, they believe in fighting on the streets, and therefore our job is to build the biggest, massive organisation we can, to thousands and tens of thousands of people to confront them, not in the face of let's stand up and swear toe-to-toe with them, but in the idea of Cable Street and of Lewisham, where thousands of people come together and shout, they shall not pass. Mass direct action is the way we have to stop them when they try and take our streets, because if we don't, they will bring with them terror and violence. The last point is the sword. Why we need a sword as well. Because I don't know how you felt about this election, but what is it the BNP are feeding on? They're feeding on